on as settled with the Sacramento Valley Mirror newspaper, who we have been reporting on the case of Dalas Gundersen versus Edward Jones Company LLP, and also Paul Bentonbaugh and Lisa Rodriguez involved. Jon Garner is Dalas's attorney for the 5 years this has been going on. And John, tell us briefly about the case.
Well, the case that went to the jury was essentially, a case of harassment, a case of bullying and defamation. We put on evidence for, I think, approximately 3 days. The evidence detailed Mr. Gundersen's treatment that he received, poor treatment he received from Lisa Rodriguez, and then obviously eventually Paul Bentonbaugh with the Craigslist posts. What was going on was that we came to learn that Lisa Rodriguez was making untrue statements to Mr. Gundersen's former customers, and that there were a lot of other things like kind of stalking his whereabouts around town, reporting to Edward Jones about things like Mr. Gundersen's house being listed for sale, joking with Mr. Bentonbaugh, or I guess desiring that he would move to Florida, deliberately clicking on news store or sort of lawyer solicitations that were bad-mouthing Dalas Gundersen so that those would appear higher in search engines. And then afterward, obviously, Paul Bentonbaugh going on Craigslist and posting a number of Craigslist sex ads designed to inundate Mr. Gundersen's work phone with lewd sexual requests, things of that nature. And at trial, we had obviously we made the argument, I think successfully, that Mr. Bentonbaugh was doing more than that. We argued that he was responding to ads. And to support those arguments, we were actually very fortunate that Craigslist actually agreed to have somebody come into court and testify. And I think that was a very uplifting part of the case from my perspective, because Craigslist was very supportive of helping us. You sometimes think of companies like Craigslist as being somewhat inaccessible. And the attorneys for Craigslist were very supportive of wanting to make sure that we were able to present evidence necessary to see that the jury had the facts. And that was nice, because in this day and age it's not always so easy to go out and get the facts, especially in a case involving online harassment.
That explains the case well. Can you go over the result of this that just finished on Friday?
The jury, I may not have the splits correct, but past harm, future harm, as against both Paul Bentonbaugh on the one hand, the jury awarded damages against Mr. Bentonbaugh in total of $8 million, and then as against Lisa Rodriguez and Edward Jones, together they awarded damages of $30 million, and we were very proud of that result, because we think it was really indicative of it was sad. It was sad what had happened, and I think that the jury had spoken, and we were very pleased with the result. And then when we came back just yesterday, we had the punitive damage phase of the case. Because of a ruling from the court, we were not able to ask for punitive damages against Edward Jones. We had stipulated to an amount of punitive damages against Mr. Bentonbaugh with his counsel. And so we really only put on a punitive damage case against Lisa Rodriguez. We asked the jury for, I think, just about $1 million, and the jury came back and awarded just under $1 million. And again, I feel like that was very vindicating, that they felt that the punishment was in line with about what we were asking, and we were very pleased with that result. I just don't think that there's any place in a decent society for how she was acting toward Mr. Gundersen. It's that simple.
Thank you. Dalas, how do you feel about the result? How do you feel?
Well, it's been a very long haul And Jon and the rest of my legal team, but very specifically Jon, has been a personal hero and friend, and I couldn't have ever made it through without him and his family's faith and belief in me. And I'll admit, I broke down during the trial when faced with some of the things that I was dealing with starting in 2015. That was just a real horror for me. I mean, I felt terrorized by what was going on. I became paranoid. I didn't understand initially who was doing this and why they had such a campaign, such a vindictive, nasty campaign, and a very peculiar form of sexual harassment. You know, I'm not against people who are homosexual, but I'm not. And I was a married family man at the time these things started, and then when I learned where this was coming from, it was even that much more devastating to me emotionally, because I had done nothing except tried to help these people and help this firm. And so in fact, I felt like I was a company man, somebody who bled Edward Jones green. You know, that was kind of a phrase we had in the leadership team with Edward Jones. And then to have them so treat me so horribly after having served them loyally for 15 years prior was really devastating. And I was at a very low, and it came out in trial. You know, one of the statements was they kicked a man when he was down, and I was that man, and it felt horrible. And it was 6 long years, you know, 6 long years. And so that kind of came out. I mean, it's you know, I wasn't proud of that, but it was just a reality that all that time and all that effort going into try to rehabilitate my name and try to rebuild something. I mean, even after 6 full years, I'm only back to about half where I was. And I think there's still a lot of suspicion and wonder and worry out in the community. And so it's been a very long, hard road. And again, personal hero of mine, Jon Garner, and the team he built. Jon is a fantastic attorney, but he's also a fantastic team builder, and he knows who and where to go to get a positive and effective result. And so, you know, my hat's off to him and to Erica and to Mr. Gavilov for all the effort that they collectively put in. But nobody has worked harder than this man to bring a measure of justice to myself in this case, and really to the industry. This should help change things for the better. It's not just about me. This shouldn't be done to anyone. And to the degree that there's a lesson learned and maybe new SOPs, standard operating procedures put in place so that this doesn't happen to other people, would be a very helpful result coming out of this. But now I feel like I can go out in the community, and I feel like my head is a little higher, and that I don't feel quite so damaged. I'm not back to where I was. I'll be blunt with you. I'm not the same man I was prior to all this.
That's understandable. It was a terrible ordeal. And just for information, I should say Dalas is a longtime friend, and I've seen what he's gone through, and it is been very difficult for him. But most of what I hear in the community is everybody supports you.
I felt more of that recently, especially.
I have not heard anything about anyone talking against you. Everyone who has dealt with you as a client has been more than happy with your services.
I know when this started, when you know, when Dalas first came to speak to me, I know, you know, my dad, who's been in the community since 1977, you know, we sometimes talk about cases that we may or may not get involved with, and you know, his comment to me was, Dalas has always been there for him, just always been a business person in the community you could count on. And you know, I think there was really at the outset of this a sense of wanting to help a member of the community, because there really was a way in which Dalas was, you know, a very important person in this community. And so I mean, I always felt that was a very touching aspect of this, that, you know, my dad, like I said, has been with me a long time, really genuinely felt like, gosh, you know, we can't not help Dalas now, and was very appreciative of what Dalas did as a professional in the community. So it was really about people of the community,
Well,
helping people of the community.
And that was a big honor that your dad was willing to sort of express that to you, you know, because we became friends through this process, but I don't think I really knew, I mean, I knew of you, but I didn't know you as I do now when we first met and talked. And so
Yeah.
your dad's vote of confidence was pretty, really touched me that he was willing to say those things to you.
A case of this size and duration, we've been on the road together. We had to go to St. Louis together.
Yeah.
We stayed in a little motel. You know, Dalas was always the most gracious client. And usually when you represent clients, you know, you're kind of taking care of them through the process. But Dalas always made sure we were well fed, made sure we had what we needed. He was.
Well, that's Dalas's character.
Yeah. Any little thing along the way that was positive, Dalas was the first to say, you know, can I do something for you guys positive? And we'd always say, you know, let's just stay the course. But he's a good human being, and I think that's a big part of why we're very happy with the result. He's a good human being.
Yes, and we have been covering this since the first filings you did back in 2016.
Yeah, we filed, I think,
And mostly by Tim Cruz.
Yeah, Tim was always, Tim and I, you know, it's funny because Tim really had an investigative bone, you know, he really liked an investigation, and you know, I think when we discovered, you know, there were a couple different ways, but Mr. Bettenbaugh's cell phone was tied to the ads, and Air Right in Orland was a business next door to Edward Jones, a router of theirs that Edward Jones financial advisors had been, I guess, utilizing because Edward Jones restricts their internet access, so they were using a neighboring business. Paul Bettenbaugh used that router. I think Tim really enjoyed and shared with me that he enjoyed the investigative aspects of that, and you know, and even Judge Tweed to some extent, you know, early on with the motions we were filing, I thought, gosh, he's going to think this is a really wild case, and I think even there was a little bit of intrigue, you know, that this was going on. It was really horrible, and somehow, you know, over this months-long period, we were sifting through how to get to the bottom of who was behind it. So it made it fun, and I know Tim thought it was interesting because it affects a lot of people. We learned that during the board
Interesting
diary.
and very worthwhile. Yeah, he was
It goes
very
on.
much into the case.
Yeah, and he said he you know, it would have been neat for Tim to have seen the voir dire portion, because during the voir dire, a number of jurors had to leave because of painful experiences involving cyberbullying. I mean, a number of jurors got very emotional and left, and Tim actually kind of foresaw that. He said to me that you wish there was a better mechanism for catching these people, because he said this is going on around us all the time, and a lot of people suffer in silence. And I think that's actually the biggest thing, you know, that goes missed in this. There are a lot of people in this community suffering in silence. They're being bullied. It's not okay. And Tim was very much against that. And you know.
Yes, and he thought Dallas was very brave to fight it and come back with this, going public.
Well, and again, I couldn't have done it without the help and support of great people and the amazing team. The faces you saw were Jon, Erica, and Agni and Gavrilov, but the fact is Jon has reached out to so many different people that have been gracious with their time and their advice, and that if we had a list 100 names long, I don't think we could thank everybody that's been a part of helping us get to where we are.
Yeah, Dan Ambrose, right before trial. There's a trial attorney from Southern California that provides, you know, basically trial training coaching, you know, helps you a little bit. I mean, he flew up. I mean, he came up and, you know, right on the eve of trial, and was kind of listening to some of our approaches and stuff. And again, because even if you're on the side of right, you know, if you don't say it the right way, or you stumble, or you're confused, all those things can send the wrong message to the jury or confuse the issues. And you know, I mean, the defense, I mean, they bring their A game. I mean, they show up ready to defend the case with everything they've got. So a lot of preparedness goes into it. And you're right, that was really touching for me too. The willingness. I mean, even Agni and Gavrilov coming in towards the end. I mean, he's Sacramento Trial Attorney of the Year. With nothing more initially than a handshake, he said, "I'm involved," and then he threw himself into the case and was a very critical part of the case coming down the stretch. So just that support we received from others was so touching, and we're talking some of the best attorneys in the country, you know, really coming in and helping out to make sure that, you know, we had the support we needed, you know.
And it really, I hope he doesn't mind that I share this, but it really surprised me. He said he shed a tear. He said he's never done that in another case, and so it even touched him.
Oh, I could see when the verdict came in, all of you were somewhat teary still.
Yeah, no, it was
It was very emotional and vindicated.
That's the best way to put it. That you felt a sense of, you know, you were on the side of right, and it was really touching that the jury agreed, and they agreed 12-0 on every question.
That was another amazing part of the case.
Yeah, there was
to hear that. I mean, when they read every question and every hand went up unanimously on every single question, was also a real surprise. I believe there was one hand holdout on the final,
the punitive damage.
The punitive, and then after the interview after, she actually wanted to do more than what the rest of the group wanted to do.
That's what one juror said. We don't know, but with certainty, but we do know in the first round, when they decided the initial case, the defense had asked to have the jury polled on each question, which is essentially where the defense can ask to have the jury, you know, raise their hand if they're in agreement. And when the attorneys went up to see the verdict form, you know, I really quickly saw that they were all 12-0. And so, despite that, the judge still went ahead with asking the jury, you know, if they agreed with each question. And I think that's when, I mean, you'd have to be a pretty strong dude to not break down then, because that was a really powerful moment. I mean, when they just kept, like, all 12 of them kept raising their hand, yes, yes, yes. It was like, oh my gosh, you know, you felt like you'd gotten your message across. You felt like you'd helped a good person. And that was just, that was very overwhelming, very overwhelming.
It's hopefully you will see that check before too long from Edward Jones. And this is my dog Tara. Loves to be in the office. Our mascot.
That's great. That's great. Well,
yes.
A Labrador. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. To talk a little bit about the story, we appreciate that.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
Oh well,
yeah.
of course.
That's
a great win.
Yeah.
Right on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.